corner kick goal at long last and a place above the playoff line as well. It was a very good weekend for Inter Miami. Hello everyone, I'm Franco Panizo, and this is Miami Total Football Radio, or Miami Total Football Radio, joined by my new mate, my new partner in crime, Steve Brenner, aka David Beckham's long-lost cousin. Steve, how are you doing this weekend? Or this week, actually?
I'm good, Frank. I'm good. And thanks for the nickname. I mean, because we're English, I guess we are related. Me and David are related at some level, even a very granular level. So, yeah, maybe he is like my long lost cousin that I never knew about, and maybe you've revealed it to me. So thank you.
Yeah, see, I'm breaking news left and right over the last few weeks. I know you. I mean, you're also write for England or for English outlets. So I know deep down inside you probably are reporting to David on the whereabouts of this team. I mean, he hasn't been around much, he hasn't posted much in recent weeks or recent months. So I know you're probably giving him the real 411 on the down low.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm sure he's in the know anyway, and I'm sure he has been watching. I'm sure he would have loved that the other day, especially it was an afternoon kickoff, so it wasn't too late back in the UK. So perfect sort of Saturday night viewing for him in his country pile with his kids and his dogs and everything else that's going on. And I think he would have loved that. And I bet, you know, in all honesty, he would have loved to have been at the stadium. You know, like we said, 2,200 people there. It sounded more like 15,000, and it just made you think, you know, what it would be like when the stands are completely packed, because even with just 2,000 in it, you know, it had a great atmosphere. Great atmosphere. It was decent in comparison to what we've had to sit through, you know, over the last few weeks. So that was nice to see, and then, you know, great finish as well.
Yeah, it was definitely great in comparison to what we've experienced over the resumption of the MLS season that started in August, and it's kind of progressively gotten better and better. But this one was obviously the cherry on top as far as fan atmosphere and environment goes so far at Inter Miami CF Stadium. We're going to talk about the atmosphere and the environment, as well as Inter Miami's 2-1 victory over Orlando City, a dramatic last gasp win for Inter Miami, and obviously that puts them above the playoff line. But before we do that and get into everything else we're going to talk about, just as a reminder to everyone to give us a follow on all our social media accounts, at Miami Total Football on YouTube and Facebook, at MIA Total Football on Twitter, and at Miami_Total_Football on Instagram. And that's Futbol, the Spanish version. I think I said it a couple times, or kind of said it football instead of football, but it's Futbol, the Spanish language version. But now we'll get into everything. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about the atmosphere. We're going to talk about the big matches that are to come this week, and we're going to answer your questions. So, Steve, let's get to it. Steve, as you mentioned, there were fans in the stands, and more than just a few hundred of them like there were 2 home games ago. This time there were thousands of fans in attendance, 2,216 to be exact, and they witnessed a late victory from Inter Miami against rivals Orlando City in what I dub the Sunshine Clásico, El Clásico del Sol. Steve, you were there alongside with me and a few other of the beat writers. What did you think of the atmosphere? Let's start there. Obviously, we're going to dissect the game a little bit and talk about that, but what did you just think overall about the atmosphere, about how the crowd and what the crowd brought to the match, and just to the overall vibe at the stadium?
Yeah, man. You know, I think we touched on it last week that, you know, it makes going to games without any fans makes you realise what it's like when there actually are full houses, packed crowds, you know, that we've covered over the years. It sort of makes you take everything for granted. You know, people back in the UK are, you know, I don't think they're going to let fans in for months yet, you know, and already a lot of journalists are complaining, you know, not complaining, but basically saying, you know, just how it's sort of sucking the life out of the experience of covering the matches. And it's true. I felt that 100%. And I was a bit buoyed, you know, lifted when those few hundred fans were in for the Atlanta game. And this was just, you know, that natural progression to 2,000. So, you know, 4, 5, 6 times the amount of people. And yeah, it just felt like an occasion. It felt like a proper match. You know, and it was good to see. I just hope everyone, you know, was acted safely according to everything that's going on right now. Certainly they were spaced out in the stands, you know, on the side. It looked a bit sort of congested behind the goal, but I'm sure it was fine. You're outside, etc., etc. So no, it was great to see, and hopefully when we come back for the next season, then hopefully the stands will be packed, because I think they made a great sound, a great noise with only 2,200 people in. Don't forget the 50 brave souls that travelled from Orlando, and actually the 3 also that were sat right in front of us in the press box.
Yeah.
Not to get their ears flicked after when they didn't really care, just getting up and down. But they were sitting near Blaise Matuidi's family, so I don't think they were going to get in a fight. But it was good to see and welcome, and I'm just pleased that they had something to cheer about in the end as well.
Well, so yeah, I mean, obviously the vibe and atmosphere was much better than anything that we've experienced in terms of Inter Miami to this point in the season, at least as far as home games go. Look, I gotta say this: like the stadium, to me, obviously it's a temporary stadium, and there's been talking points about the seats in the stands, and it's pretty much like so some people say it's just high school bleachers, just really fancily decorated or really fancy, but that helped create a pretty loud and rowdy environment that was pretty ruckus. Like the way the fans would start stomping on the steel or the metal bleachers, and the way that noise carried and reverberated for just 2,000 people, it was pretty loud. And that was us on the inside in the press box. The press box, for anyone that's wondering, at least where we sit, the written press does not have, the windows are not able to be open, so normally we can't hear that much on what's happening on the outside. It's hard to hear, but this one you could hear pretty loud and well the fans and the noise being made on the outside. And again, this is just 2,000 fans. So like you said, if next year they can pack that thing and get all 19,000 people in there, then that's going to make for a really incredible and awesome environment for the team, for the players, and for anybody that's just a neutral that just likes watching and experiencing the game. Because I thought it was a real fun game. Again, I'm just speaking from a neutral standpoint. Just the vibe that was there and the atmosphere and just the aura definitely added to the overall match and the overall drama of the game. Obviously, there's a late winner to boot, so that helps. You hear the roar of the crowd in that last minute or in those final minutes. So definitely a plus. I thought the vibe was great. I think it was handled pretty well. There was alcohol and stations and all different types of things throughout the stadium to try to help meet those protocols. So overall, thought it was a big plus. Thought it was handled fairly well, and I think that will give the opportunity for the doors to open again for the regular season finale in about 2 weeks' time. So Steve, let's talk about the actual game now. Inter Miami gets a big 2-1 victory over the rivals Orlando City off an 89th minute goal from Leandro Gonzalez Pires, the first Inter Miami goal off of a corner kick. Steve, what'd you make of the goal? What'd you make of that moment? What'd you make of Inter Miami finally scoring at long last on a corner?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was a typical Inter Miami performance, wasn't it? Really, I thought the first 20 minutes or so, Orlando bossed it. Junior Urso in their midfield was great. He was like a marauding sort of Patrick Vieira type, player, just completely bossing it. He faded, but then when they let in the goal early on, bad mistake by Figal, it looked, a heart sort of sank and like, here we go. But fair enough, they stuck in there, little moments of quality, and they never looked out of the game, but they never really kind of looked like they were completely on top. And then, they got the level just before half time, and then the game was nip and tuck, wasn't it? I think, Orlando faded. They were coming off the back of a 12 unbeaten, so they're in decent form. Nani was disappointing. He was their talisman. He didn't really do anything. Junior Urso sort of stepped off a bit, and it was looking like, well, actually, this could be a good point. John McCarthy then, amazing, brilliant save, fantastic reaction save. That was the game right there. Back up the other end, Lewis Morgan's delivery, although he had been pretty quiet for his sort of recent standards, his delivery from set pieces was still great. Great corner. And then, Gonzalez Pires with the header, and from nowhere they stole the win, so it was a massive win. I was pleased they won it for the fans that were there, and also it just keeps that playoff race interesting and alive. But look, typical performance. I think they defended pretty well. Still the question marks over Pizarro. I just Pellegrini, he looks like he's got something. He just looks so raw. For them to have signed him as a DP was a big call. They obviously see something in him. He's obviously got great potential, but he just looks a little bit raw to me right now. Not the kind of guy that will just consistently sort of produce. He's been doing it in fits and starts, and Pizarro sort of typical from him as well. He has a lot of touches on the ball, but he doesn't seem to penetrate, in the final third, which is where they want him to do. And whether or not that was Orlando just defending well, or his just an inability just for him just to sort of carve out openings. But he enjoyed a lot of possession, just doesn't really do enough with the ball. So if they can progress those problems and try and solve them moving forward into these last 3 games, then they're going to potentially have a chance. But you never really know with this team. They're not completely convincing yet, but that's what maybe keeps it a bit interesting.
Yeah, so for me, the best moment that Inter Miami had, the best moments in the match were from the 30th minute around there to halftime. That was the best spell or the best stretch of the match that Inter Miami had from the run of play. They started to create a little bit more. They took the ball away from Orlando City a lot more, and they started to dictate and put the tempo or put the game on their terms. There was that one play from Ben Sweat that was some good combination that finds him with a back heel from Julian Carranza at the top of the box. Ben Sweat obviously takes a weaker right-footed shot. He's left-footed, so he takes a weaker right-footed shot towards the right post, and Pedro Galese makes a good save. Maybe you'd expect somebody else to finish that, but you can't really be too critical of a left back shooting on his off foot on that opportunity. But again, Inter Miami in those 15 minutes started to play better, and they got their, for me, deserved equalizer in the 45th minute. And I mean, Rodolfo Pizarro was involved in that bunch, and I don't necessarily agree with you fully there that he didn't have a good game. I agree that there's moments that he leaves something to be desired, but I think he had a good game in his first match back into the lineup. I rated him.
He did okay. He did okay without being.
I rated him third best out of all the field players on Inter Miami. Third best. That's just me. Like I do the player ratings after every game. I give him third best. I'm sure for you, he's probably somewhere in the middle.
Good? Is that good? Third best?
Third best? Yeah, that's pretty good.
Third best in the team that weren't even playing that well. Is that good? I don't know. You, Tom?
I mean, third. If we're talking just the team in Miami and top, who are your top performers? I had Leandro Gonzalez Pires number 1, Blaise Matuidi number 2, and Rodolfo Pizarro number 3. I think that's if you're in the podium, if any game you're in the podium, unless you get completely blown out, then I feel like that's a respectable performance. Again, doesn't mean that he doesn't have room for improvement, but I thought he had a good first game back with the group. Not great, but good.
6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. Yeah.
So Inter Miami gets the goal right before halftime. Blaise Matuidi takes a shot from the left that gets poorly cleared by Robin Jansen and ends up finding the back of Orlando City's net. 1-1. Help give Inter Miami some life and some confidence going into the break. They come out of the break. They create a fairly good chance pretty early on. Julian Carranza hits a header off the crossbar, across from Lewis Morgan. And I agree with you that I didn't think, by Lewis Morgan standards and just overall, he didn't have the best game. He's fairly quiet in this one, despite being involved in the game winner with the assist on the set piece and that cross that I just mentioned to Julian Carranza that hit the crossbar. So besides those 2 plays, I thought he was overall kind of below his level. I'm very surprised he made MLS Team of the Week as a bench option, but I do know what goes into that process, so maybe I shouldn't be too surprised, because it's not necessarily that the league and the people that pick the Team of the Week necessarily watch every game from minute 1 to minute 90. It's just kind of like there's so many games they have to just pick and choose based on what they see in spurts or in flashes. So maybe that's what led to him there. I don't think he belonged on the Team of the Week, not even as a bench option. But I think Lewis Morgan's been one of the top 2-3 players for Inter Miami this season, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But yeah, I don't know how he made the Team of the Week this go around. So overall, I agree with you. It wasn't a game that Inter Miami on the whole played super well. They had their moments and they stayed in the game, and that's something about this Inter Miami team that you've seen now at this point through the first 20 weeks of the season, is that they never really get blown out. They have a couple times, but they don't normally get blown out, and they normally don't blow anybody out. They usually just kind of stay there. I think the 2-1 result, whether it's a win or a loss, we've seen that a bunch of times. I don't know the exact number. We can go and count it and talk about it on next week's pod, but it's definitely been a lot. We've definitely seen that 2-1 scoreline quite a bit. So
yeah, I was going to say they only scored 21 goals, which is Cincinnati have only scored 11. But it's the sort of fourth lowest out in the Eastern Conference. So that's something they need to work on for sure.
Yeah, and look, just for me, the last goal, obviously the game winner, a good corner kick, good service, good delivery from Lewis Morgan, good play from Inter Miami. Leandro Gonzalez-Pires said it after the game that the team has this play where they send essentially everybody to the near post, and that essentially gave them a numerical advantage because Orlando City covers or defend set pieces with zonal marking. They don't do man-to-man like a lot of teams do. They do zonal marking, so their players just stay in certain spots to clear out the ball. They had done it very well, or mostly well, over the course of those 90 minutes, but just that one play in that one moment with that good set-piece delivery allowed Leandro Gonzalez-Pires to head the ball into the back of the net. The scenes were incredible. Not only was Leandro Gonzalez roaring with his teammates in the corner as he celebrated, but you saw Diego Alonso literally run up the touchline and just absolutely elated that Inter Miami was finally able to get that goal. The fans were in a frenzy in the North Stand, and it was just a nice way to cap that first home game in front of so many fans for Inter Miami. I was half expecting Diego Alonso to rip his shirt off and have a shirt underneath that said "Screw you, Franco" after last week's video that I put up about their set piece struggles.
Or he's going to jump into the stands, like smash into the press box, like give you a socially distanced hug with his mask on, and run down. Everyone's be crying. No, but look, I love that. I love seeing the emotion of that, especially with the manager. Jose Mourinho famously, when his Porto side beat Man United in the Champions League, ran down the touchline, I think slid on his knees. They love to see that. Fans love to see that. And it just shows that he cares. He cares about it. And he cares about the club. And he's worked hard to get those kind of results. You don't know this kind of, the roller coaster of emotions he must go through on the sideline, especially in a game like that when they weren't really in it. They weren't really out of it. So it was a good moment, and hopefully they'll learn from that and get confidence from it moving forward.
Yeah, that's something that I highlighted or touched on during the MLS's back tournament when they said they had all these different cameras that they were going to do to produce these games after the long layoff, and one of them was that from what I saw and observed, they started focusing more on coaches' reactions to plays, which I think that's pretty standard across the world in terms of soccer, in terms of football. But I think MLS is finally starting to discover that that's a big part of the narrative, a big part of a match, a big part of what can lead to a great moment, like we saw Diego Alonso have. So hopefully we'll see more of that across the board, not just with Inter Miami as far as MLS goes. And I think we have, but hopefully we see more of that. Steve, anything else stand out to you in this match? Anything else that you want to talk about or say, this is a big takeaway that I had from this one?
I guess he will be pleased sort of defensively that they managed to sort of shut up shop. There was a bad error by Figal for the opener, but they sort of recovered from that and held firm, and with McCarthy behind them, they looked pretty solid. I thought Matuidi had a decent enough game. We're kind of repeating ourselves with the same old sort of problems here, whereas they're great at the back, or not great at the back, but they're getting more solid. It's just now need to work on just in that final third when they try and get the ball into the box. Can they do something with it? Can they carve out those opportunities? But no, I just think defensively they would have been pleased for sure. And they kept Nani quiet and their other guys maybe faded a bit. But, Orlando were pretty good, especially in the first half. They were very impressive. First time I've seen them live this season, really. And, I was impressed by them. They played it around nicely. So, all in all, I think Diego will be pleased that they just managed to hold in and just keep it together when it could have fallen apart. Orlando would have gone 2 up. Then none of us would have really fancied them to come back. So, that was pleasing to see for sure.
Yeah, I've got 2 things that I would like to highlight here, and one is what you just touched on, and it's that defensively, and the team showed progress in this game. They still had that one lapse, that one mistake early on. Nicolas Figal misplays a long ball from Antonio Carlos. He misplays that ball. Daryl Dike gets in and scores. 12 minutes in, at that point, it looked like, man, Inter Miami could be in for a long day. But they closed things up defensively. They did a very good job the rest of the way. Like you said, they didn't give up very much. I think the only other shot on target that Orlando City had, the only other shot they had on target was that 88th minute shot that John McCarthy saves with his leg. Game-saving stop from McCarthy, no doubt about it. Monster save. It'll go in the highlight reel for the season, for his career. I do have to say, Benji Michel should have put that one away for Orlando City. He literally has all of the goal to shoot at. John McCarthy is laying on the ground. He's not even standing up to be able to react all that well. He's on the ground, and Benji Michel shoots it right at him. So fair.
That's the drill, isn't it? That's the drill for keepers. You always see down. They throw the ball down. They dive down, straight back up again. Down, straight back up again.
He was just down. He didn't even get up. He was just laying. Yeah. Benji Michel literally has all the goal at his mercy to put it away, and he shoots it right where John McCarthy is. Again, I'm not going to say that it's not a game-saving stop. It's absolutely that, and full credit to John McCarthy, but it also, you have to take, and the TUDN commentator said it on the broadcast as well when I rewatched the game at night, the shot was very poor. The shot was put right in the middle where the goalkeeper is. If you put that in,
he was alive though. He was alive. He was alive to the situation. He was there. He was ready to act, and he acted.
Hey, he even said it after the game, right? And I think he had the quote of the night or the quote of the weekend, maybe for across the entire league. We're talking about John McCarthy, and he said, and we won't repeat the exact words, but he said, I thought I blanked up when I put the ball towards the middle, because he puts, he gets his hand on it and rolls it kind of towards Benji Michel in an effort to try to make a last-ditch save when the ball came across the box. But obviously he makes the save, and as he put it, as John McCarthy put it, after he made the save, he thought, holy blank. So, again, huge credit to him, but also have to take into consideration that Benji Michel really, really botched that. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, we talked about the defense, the attack, right? It's the emotions are high after this one, especially in the immediate aftermath. They won late, there was drama, but the attack still has issues. The team created 20 shots in this game, only 4 were on target. They didn't overly test Pedro Galese. They had a couple good looks. Can't deny that. Their first goal, the equalizer, comes off of an own goal. That's a bit fortuitous on their part, and they'll take it. Nothing wrong with winning a game that way, but they have to find a way to be better in the final third if they're going to get enough points out of these next 3 matches to make the playoffs, because you're not going to be able to rely on a last-minute set-piece goal every single match. I mean, Inter Miami hasn't even scored or a corner kick goal until this one, so they have to be able to be better from the run of play. I think they showed moments in this one. Again, Carranza had a header, Ben Sweat had a good look, but they need to do better in that regard if they're going to really, really ensure that they finish in a playoff spot. Right now, they're in 10th in the Eastern Conference. They're in the final spot above the playoff line. We'll see if they can hold on to it. Last topic I want to touch on before we shift gears, Steve, and I said we would talk about this, is for you up to this point in the season, who has been the best player for Inter Miami? Because obviously Lewis Morgan's gotten a lot of credit, a lot of love, a lot of publicity. He's lost a lot of the spotlight, and with good reason. But for me, and it's not just because of this weekend, it's something I've just observed and just my opinion and my take on the course of the season, I think Leandro Gonzalez Pires has been the most consistent and the best player for Inter Miami in 2020. He obviously didn't play in the first 5 games. He joined the team about halfway or a third of the way through and couldn't play until after the MLS's back tournament. But since his integration into the group, I think he's been very steady, very good, not only in his defending, not only because he scored a game-winning goal this weekend, his first, while he was Inter Miami's team captain, that has to be noted, but because of the fact that he's just so steady and he gives you something in the attack as well with his passing, which is something I think you highlighted as well last week. So for me, it's Leandro Gonzalez Pires. Up until now, there's still 3 games left in the year in the regular season for that to change. But I think right now, Leandro Gonzalez Pires is a slight edge above Lewis Morgan. But I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, no, it's a good shout. Definitely Gonzalez Pires has impressed me. On the ball, he's got a good range of passing. He seems like he's a good organizer. He's also he's been around the league for a few years. Played at Atlanta, obviously, so has that experience. I'd still go with Lewis Morgan. I just think he's been topping the sort of goals charts and the assist charts. He's the most potent threat, and a guy that on paper, when you looked at it, you're like, oh, what's he going to do? We don't know much about him. He stopped starting England, but has really sort of thrived here. So I'll stick with the Scottish Messi for now. But it's good to see Gonzalez Perez. Yeah, I mean, also soak up the responsibility of being the captain, scoring. Alonso clearly rates him, but definitely the way that he can pass the ball and pass the ball like defence is key. I remember he was part of the move that when Brek Shea scored against Atlanta, I think it was his crossfield ball that started to move off to player of the season, Lewis Morgan, who then crossed it in. So I wouldn't disagree with you. I would just have a different player, but that's not to say that Gonzalez Perez hasn't been impressive, because he has. And
you do disagree. So you do disagree with me.
I do disagree. Gets an extra half point because we actually interviewed him, didn't we, the other day while he was getting a massage.
Yes. So please share now. You have to share the story. Because that didn't make it out to the YouTube channel. That didn't make it out to the public, that post training interview. So share with the public, the general public, about this fascinating, probably never before seen or never before happened, at least as far as Inter Miami goes, type of interview. Yeah,
well, we get given a player, in a couple of days, preceding the match, and because of the situation we're in, normally we'd be down at the training ground interviewing these guys. There'd be a huddle of us local guys just speaking to them, but we're now reduced to Zoom and online, everything like that, webcams, a lot. And Gonzalez Perez, after we finished with Diego Alonso, wasn't actually ready and was actually getting a massage to help his weary limbs. And rather than us wait 5 hours until he'd actually finished, the very helpful Inter Miami press people actually gave him, I think it was he on the phone?
I would have to imagine it was on the cell phone because of the way he flipped it, right? He flipped it at one point, right? He flipped the camera, so that has to be on a cell phone. You can't, he didn't flip the computer around it. So
that's it. He showed us all the people rubbing his legs and everything. He was in the locker room. He was in some sort of massage area.
The physios were in there working on him. He was in a very good mood. He was definitely in a very good mood, and that massage probably helped and allowed him to score that game-winning goal. One more thing I'll touch on really quickly is Blaise Matuidi. Thought it was a very interesting moment. Thought it was funny. I laughed at it when I rewatched the game, as I do after every game. But in the goal celebration, Blaise Matuidi comes over. He's all happy. He's smiling. And as he's getting into the group huddle, a couple of players walk away. And he gets mad and starts screaming at them to come back so that they can run down or waste some more time. It's because obviously the game was towards the dying stages. They do come back, and then he gets back to smiling and embracing. But the referee ends up coming over and breaking him up because he caught what Blaise Matuidi was trying to do. Blaise Matuidi, for me, like I said, if it wasn't for Gonzalez Perez's last or late goal, I think Blaise Matuidi would have been man of the match. He had a very good game, quite possibly his best game for Inter Miami. But we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back to talk about this week's big matches and the key to the games against FC Dallas and Toronto FC. Steve, there are 3 games left in the MLS regular season for Inter Miami. 2 of them will take place this week. They're both on the road. First on Wednesday against FC Dallas, team not in the Eastern Conference. And then on Sunday, the day after Halloween, against Toronto FC, a team that is in the Eastern Conference and near the top. Inter Miami is in 10th place right now, even on points with the Chicago Fire, but is ahead of them due to the tiebreakers. But it's all very close there at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Following Chicago is Atlanta with 19, DC with 18. Cincinnati's probably out with 16 points. You could probably count them out, although they're still mathematically alive. Steve, there's 2 big games this week. two matches that could very well decide Inter Miami's fate even before the regular season finale. What are the keys to these matches? And I guess the bigger question is, how many points do you think Inter Miami needs from these next two to really have a chance at qualifying for the playoffs during the final week of the regular season?
If you think that they're playing Cincinnati last at home, right? So, I mean, they're going to have to win. They've got to win at least one of these games. I think if you said you can get 4 points now from these two games, would you take it? I think he'd snap their proverbial arm off. So, Dallas, still they're sixth in the Western Conference right now, coming off the back of a draw and a defeat. Toronto, Toronto qualified, haven't they? Anyway, so are they going to take their foot off the gas? I mean, probably not. It's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult. And then there was a big result as Leandro Gonzalez Perez, scored the goal. Atlanta had equalised against DC United, only for DC United to score right in the last minute and win that. And that keeps them alive as well. So you've got all those three teams underneath Miami now really sort of scrapping away for it, and they've got to get a minimum of one win from the next two. And I just think on the road against these teams that have had much better seasons, more established in the league, obviously it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for sure when you consider that you'd hope that they would be able to beat bottom of the table Cincinnati in the last game. I think it's going to go to the wire, but I think if they turn up for that last game, having lost, the previous two, as we just mentioned, I think it's curtains. So
you think 3 points? That's what you're saying. They need a minimum of 3 points to have a chance to make the playoffs. That's what you would deem a respectable haul
from the next two games.
Yes. They're both away from home.
Minimum. Yeah, they've got to get a win. Got to get a win. I don't. I mean, you just don't know, do you? But if they want to do it, and if they did win, that would push them onto 24. Potentially could go up Montreal, just 1 point behind Nashville. Then you're looking at it like they could get to 6th, 7th, or 8th maybe if they can win that last game against Cincinnati. It just opens up so many more possibilities. I just think a draw leaves them perilously close. It doesn't lead them out of it, and even if they lose both games, they'll still be, it obviously depends on other results. The bare minimum, they need to win one out of these next two games.
I agree with you. 3 points are absolutely what's needed for them to have a fighting chance to make the playoff, and I think the more realistic match to do that in is Wednesday. Obviously a short turnaround, but you're playing a team that in FC Dallas that has been up and down this season. Very, very inconsistent. They're sixth in the West, but their record is 6 wins, 5 losses, and 7 draws. They've scored 22 goals and given up 20. So fairly subpar or fairly average is the better word there. So that's a game that Inter Miami can win. Going into Toronto to beat the second best placed team in the Eastern Conference as of today, that is fighting for the Supporter Shield. They're tied on points with the Philadelphia Union, even though they just lost 5-0 to the Philadelphia Union in a surprising result over the weekend. I think that's a very tough ask, a very tough task. I think they need a minimum of 3 points, and I think that needs to come on Wednesday night because Toronto FC is going to be a very difficult challenge. Now, if they can get 4, obviously the ideal scenario and situation would be 6 points, right? That's obviously the ideal scenario, win both of them. But if we're talking a little more realistically or a little more just from the outside perspective, what we think they can realistically manage, again, this is just our opinion, I think 3 is the bare minimum. 4 would be fantastic. 4 would put you in a very good spot going into that final home game against the weakest team in the Eastern Conference. With we were expecting fans to be back in attendance, so you would like Inter Miami's chances if they can get 4 points. 3 points gives them a chance. I think gives them a chance. 4, I think, definitely puts them in a very good position. But they need at least a minimum of 3 in this one. What do you think are keys? We've talked about the attack. We've talked about the defense. What do you think are the keys for this one? Obviously, Gonzalo Higuain will be back for Inter Miami in both of these. I mean, you expect he'll be available for both of these, starting with Wednesday against Dallas. So what are the keys for Inter Miami to be able to take some points or at least get those minimum 3 points from these next 2 matches?
Score goals. I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it, at the end of the day? I think, Higuain coming back obviously is a big boost. I think Carranza did okay. He sort of worked hard, didn't he? Didn't really have too many openings. I wonder what it would be like if maybe Carranza and Higuain would play up top as a two, and then have a four. A sort of 4-4-2, Morgan on one side, maybe Pizarro on the other. Will Trapp and Matuidi in the middle. Maybe that would work. Does the 4-3-3 maybe leave them a little bit too open? Maybe. I'm not sure. I mean,
it's funny you say that, because one of the questions we have for our Q&A segment is about something similar to that, but we'll save that for the final segment of the pod. Look, for me, I think, like you said, it's about scoring goals. Obviously, they need to keep it as tight at the back as they can, avoid those mistakes that have cost them at different points in the season, because they can play well for 85 minutes and then give up, or 89 minutes, and then they give up that one. They make that one mistake that costs them and really hurts them. Obviously, that needs to continue. They need to play. They need to play as well as they can in that regard, and avoid those type of mistakes. But I think, like you said, the attack is the most important piece of this, because that's where they've struggled. And even, again, this past game, they struggled again with that, because they had some chances, they created some looks, but they still couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Their 2 goals come off of an own goal and a corner kick in the dying minutes. So they need to be able to break open an opposing team from the run of play. That will help them. That will allow them for the games to open up. That force the opponents to open up. They need to score goals. Gonzalo Higuain, this is his time to really step up to the plate and deliver. Obviously, he relies on some services. It's not strictly on him, but he's getting paid very, very handsomely. He's going to probably get the captain's armband back. This is the moment where he needs to show his experience and help the team with some big performances, and preferably a goal or 2. So that's the key for this one. Can you get the goals, and can Gonzalo Higuain step up when you most need him in this crunch time?
But you'd think maybe moving ahead, even if they get into the playoffs in a one-off match, it's a cliche. It's anyone's game, 50-50 chance for sure. I mean, the lack of the crowd is a sort of it levels the playing field a bit. You're not going to go to Atlanta with 75,000 people there. So anyway, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But on the basis of the last few matches, if they can keep it tight and hit on the break, then they've definitely got a chance of doing something. So in a one-off match, who knows what could happen? But anyway, we'll talk about that in a few weeks, hopefully.
So this will be the last question then for this segment. And we touched a little bit on the lineup. We'll touch on it again when we have this question in the Q&A session. But give me your information for Wednesday, Steve. Obviously, we won't know who's healthy and available for Saturday until we see this game, so won't ask you to project as far as Toronto FC. But against Dallas, if you're Diego Alonso, who do you throw out there, 1, and who do you think he throws out there, 2?
I guess I'm just sort of a traditionalist that maybe likes the sort of the 2 up front, and I just don't want sort of Lewis Morgan and Pizarro just to be sort of stranded up top, as well as having to sort of track back. I know Pizarro doesn't track back maybe as much, but Lewis Morgan sometimes finds himself at left back or right back. So maybe that him and Carranza together. I mean, they've never played together before. He hasn't really played that way, has he? I don't think too much. They may have flitted in and out during matches, but on the whole, he's kind of kept the same formation. So is he going to change it? Is he going to change what was a winning formation? As a manager, you're probably not going to do that. But obviously, Higuain's going to come back in. Did Carranza do enough to think that he could warrant a starting spot? I mean, maybe not, but we'll just have to wait and see. That would be the way that I would go, but I don't think he'll go like that, because he's pretty much stuck on how he wants to play, and he'll say, well, look, we won the last game and we're not in bad form, so who am I to question him?
I think he's going to go with the 4-2-3-1 we just saw against Orlando City. I think maybe you could see Matias Pellegrini come out of the lineup in addition to Julian Carranza, who will be replaced by Gonzalo Higuain. I think either Brek Shea could get the start there, maybe Pizarro out on the left, and you give Federico Higuain a start at the 10, but I don't think that's too likely, because, again, Diego Alonso likes work rate and industry from his central midfielders, even the 10, which is why Pizarro plays there, because he gets back and helps out on the defensive side. So don't think it'll be Higuain. Most likely, if there's any switch on that left flank, it'll be Brek Shea or maybe even Juan Agudelo. I think it'll be a 4-2-3-1. If I'm Diego Alonso, I go 4-2-3-1. The one question that I have on my end is, does he go, well, besides the left midfield, does he go with Dylan Nealis again at right back, or does he go with Andres Reyes at center back and push Nicolas Figal out back on the right? That's the one other question that I have that I think he's going to contemplate. But listen, Dylan Nealis is speaking to us tomorrow in the availability that Inter Miami has before the Wednesday match. And that's usually a sign that the player is going to play. It's not a guarantee, but it's usually a sign that the player that's speaking is going to play in the upcoming match. So if we're going off of that, if I'm going to just go off of that, I think Dylan Nealis gets the start. Maybe Andres Reyes isn't ready. He was on the bench in this last game. He got a yellow card against Orlando City for kicking the ball on the field while walking back to the bench. I think they're going to still work his way back to full fitness and full sharpness before they throw him back out there. And I thought Dylan Nealis had a good game, at least, very professional game against the Lions. So I think it'll be Dylan Nealis, all things considered. But we're going to take our final break, and we'll come back with our Q&A session and our final thoughts after this. So it's our weekly Q&A segment. It's time to answer your guys' questions. The first one we'll answer will be from Andres at Colo Blanco 97, a longtime listener. He actually had gone kind of quiet, kind of ghost on us for a few weeks now. Maybe he didn't like the Steve integration and the Eric departure, or I don't know if he was happy with that, because I hadn't heard from him. I was actually wondering about him the other day, but he's back. He even says it. Hey guys, been a while, but in your opinion, do we have the best run in of games after the Orlando win to qualify for the playoffs? Is it essentially in our hands? If we do qualify, is the club planning to open the stadium for a potential playoff game? Home game is unlikely, though. Steve, we touched a little bit about what we think about their remaining schedule. Is it essentially in Inter Miami's hands? What do you think with that regard? And if they do qualify, do you think that the team will open the stadium for fans at home?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is in their hands. I mean, I don't think any of the teams have got. I'm just looking at Atlanta's run in here. They're playing Orlando, home to Cincinnati, who Inter Miami have got, and then away in Columbus. So that's not easy either, is it? I just think at this end of the season, although it's been a truncated one, people are tired, and the pressure's now sort of ramping up a bit. We're talking about playoffs and they're going to miss out and ramifications and all that kind of stuff. So I think that they know what to do. They know that if they win the next 3 games, they're definitely going to be in. If they win 2, they're probably going to be in. So, and even if they lose on Wednesday, they've still got a chance from the last 2 games. So I think it's set up nicely. With the crowds, I don't know. I think logistically, the stadium, and the people behind the scenes who should get a shout out for getting the game on and getting the fans in were great. We're seeing reports that, virus rates are going up and all that sort of stuff. We're not out of the woods yet. Blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit maybe too early to start thinking that the stadium's going to be ram-packed, unfortunately, which is such a shame. But let's hopefully fingers crossed that when we do come back for the next season, that the situation will be more in control.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to see the stadium open at full capacity. I think, we might see something similar to what we saw against Orlando City on the weekend. That's if numbers, at least in South Florida, stay at where they're at. If they start spiking over the next few weeks, then that could change the whole direction of things. So I think that there's a possibility if Inter Miami gets a home game now in the playoffs. Now we're talking about, it's obviously maybe a bit of a long shot. If they win all 3 games, maybe they have a possibility. Maybe if they get 6 points, they could move up the table, but it's probably a long shot that they'll get a home playoff game at this juncture, given where they stand and how the points are spread out and the schedule they have. But it is in their hands, like you said. If they win all 3 games, they're in. No one below them is going to pass them. So win all 3 and you're in. That's a tough task. But this week is crucial. These 2 matches on Wednesday and on Sunday are make or break. Like Diego Alonso even said in the post game, we're taking these last 4 games as finals. That they played the Orlando City game like it was a final more so than a rivalry match, and that they won the game in that way and playing that way and making it feel in that manner. So expect them to do the same on Wednesday and on Sunday. Alonso said that we're preparing for another final Wednesday, so expect them to prepare in that way. Second question comes from Gabe P. It's at Gabe P. 2575. 98-36. Should Carranza play as a 9 along with Higuain in the next game? I feel if we do that, we would have better numbers than someone always up top since Pipa is dropping a lot to create plays. Also, Pizarro should start on the left and Matuidi Trap in the center. So something similar to what you said earlier. This is the question I had referenced. I guess you agree to an extent that this is a look that should be used. But for me, Steve, I don't think, one, the 4-4-2, as much as I used to like it when I was growing up and watching soccer as a younger kid, it was a formation I really liked. I thought it was very effective. However, with time in modern soccer, it's practically become extinct. Very few teams deploy a 4-4-2 this day and age. We've seen it from Inter Miami, like you said earlier, in moments, in matches, but they've never started a game that way, never played a full game in that formation. I don't think Diego Alonso is going to do that. I don't think he's going to go away from something he knows to something he doesn't really know or hasn't really used at this point in the year. Maybe next season it's something to take a look at and tinker with. But again, 4-4-2 is pretty outdated at this point. It's very hard to work because of how modern soccer and modern football is and the way players have to defend and how many numbers you need behind the ball at times. So I don't think that we'll see a 4-4-2. I think, like I said earlier, it'll be a 4-2-3-1. And I also don't think that Carranza and Higuain together, I don't know if that's going to work. Yes, Higuain drops back, but he also goes. He's used to just going forward, right? He's not used to like playing the ball forward. He plays the balls out wide. He's not much of a creator or playmaker.
Yeah, I mean, look, playing the three up top is great and it is in vogue. It's the fashionable thing. You had Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. A few years ago. Liverpool, Mane, Firmino, Salah. But they're top players who can sort of influence the game far more in the attacking third. Whereas I think with the way that Inter Miami is set up, it means that Lewis Morgan keeps having to sort of drop back and try and pick up things in midfield. And like I say, he has been found at fullback as well. So they haven't got the sort of stellar quality up top as a three to really cause team lots of problems. But yeah, on the flip side, the formation does work to some extent. Look, he's only got to play with the cards he's got right now. So, right. Has it helped them score a lot of goals? No. Have they looked more potent attackingly? Not attacking wise, not really. But it's what they're used to, and it's what he likes. So, and it's been doing okay for them recently. So, yeah, he'll stick with it. He's not going to change. But would it be different to have maybe two banks of four and then, those two up top? We'll wait and see. It's something he could switch to in the match for sure, depending on how it's going. If he wants to just sort of firm things up, and then Higuain could drop back and leave Carranza up top. Who knows? I
won't rip on Gabe, who's our listener, but I will rip on you, Steve. Come on, man. 4-4-2. Dude, as much as I like that formation, how many teams around the world play that formation? Not many. The formation has become.
What should they copy everyone else, man? This is it. He wants to have our identity, our South Florida identity, and have this football feeling. That's it. It's 4-4-2. It's Miami, man.
Look, I liked the 4-4-2 growing up. It was a formation I liked to watch. It was something like some of my favorite teams growing up that I watched played, or that I wish they played. When I was playing PES growing up, I used the 4-4-2 a lot. I like the 4.
This is the real world.
I like the 4-4-2. I liked the 4-4-2, but now we're talking real world, and we're talking modern soccer. And 4-4-2 is a dinosaur essentially. It's practically extinct. It almost doesn't exist anymore, and you just can't afford to have two players in such high up positions that don't really get back and defend. And that's what a 4-4-2 is. Because now if you're asking one of them to drop back and occupy deeper spots, then it's not a 4-4-2. You're talking a different formation, which is why I think they will go 4-2-3-1. I think, like you said, it has not necessarily been the most productive formation. It hasn't necessarily produced a whole lot in the attack, but it's what they have. It's what they know. It's what they will go with, because you're not mixing things up at this point in the season. You're not going to switch it up this late in the year, especially in crunch time when you have these games that are going to make or break your playoff lives or playoff future. They're going to go 4-2-3-1. They've done the 4-3-3 at times, but I think they're going to go 4-2-3-1. Pizarro's back. He can play as the 10. You got to figure out what you're going to do on the left side. You haven't gotten a whole lot of production out of there, be it Pellegrini or Breck Shea, but I think you just got to make do with what you have. Like you said, play the cards you're dealt or that you have, and hope for the best. So they're going to go 4-2-3-1. I would go 4-2-3-1 if I'm them. So I think that's what we'll see, but. Hey, maybe next year we'll see the 4-4-2. Listen, make a video telling Diego Alonso to do the 4-4-2, and if he does it and it works out, then you can say that you and Gabe were the genius creators behind the rebirth of Inter Miami's attack.
You wait, man. Vice City 1896 is going to be Vice City 4-4-2. I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
Hey, maybe. I don't discount the idea. I'm just saying, in modern soccer, it's tough. You don't see it that much.
I agree with you. You're right. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying, when you just put all those parts together, then if we're being a championship manager or Pez or whatever you want to do, I quite like the look of that for what the players they've got. That's all I'm saying. I know he's not going to play like that, but considering what they've got available to them to be solid and then to hit on the break potentially with two up top, just to give the opposition defenders also something to think about. Higuain may drop back, so. This is it. Again, it's all talking points, all opinion. That's why we love it.
So, Steve, any final thoughts before we wrap up this week's pod?
No, just it's been a roller coaster, isn't it? Because we came into the Orlando game sort of thinking, they had a bad couple of results and things weren't really going that well. Higuain suspended. Then all of a sudden, last minute, obviously, we talked about the save, then the goal, then the results going for them in Atlanta. So it's kept it interesting, which is the main thing, and they're still in with a shout. Not that anyone is never within a shout in a league where the top 10 out of 14 can qualify for the playoffs, but that's another conversation. They're still in it. We're still talking about it, and there's still hope, definitely, for this big game on Wednesday and then on Saturday. So it's all good.
Yeah, my final thought is, like we said, this is a big week. And I think not only does Higuain have to really step up, I think Diego Alonso really needs to manage these next two games as best as he possibly can, because this is going to determine essentially how it's viewed from the general public's eye. If Inter Miami makes the playoffs, even if they're a 10th seed, most people are going to consider that a success. I don't know if I will, but most people will consider the team making the playoffs in such a difficult season a success. If they don't make the playoffs, it's like, well, you're one of the only 14 that didn't make the playoffs, so clearly not a success. So this is a huge week for the team and a huge week for Diego Alonso and how this first year for Inter Miami will be looked at and reviewed by a lot of people. But we'll see how the games go. There's 2 matches on the agenda. As always, everyone, don't forget to follow us on our social media channels, especially the YouTube. We put out daily content or almost daily content on there, including highlights and analysis. I'm going to get Steve's mug on there fairly soon, maybe for the final regular season match, if we can make that happen. I think it's something to work on and do. I think it's a different thing we can bring to the fold. But also, guys, don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcast, formerly known as iTunes. We really appreciate it. If you can give us a 5-star rating, that'd be awesome, but give us what you feel we deserve. And please, if you can, leave us a comment as well. That does it for now. Enjoy this week's game. They're huge games. Enjoy Halloween, and we'll talk to you guys next week.